It began as one of those days every pilot dreads, and a universe determined to test him. Kael had set out alone, worn down, low on luck, and carrying more frustration than cargo. Every jump felt heavier than the last. Every station felt colder.
Warning, leaving, safe zone.
And the verse had a way of reminding pilots just how small they really were. But hardship has a strange rhythm out here in Stanton. It bends you. And sometimes it gives something back. What started as a journey of loss and missteps
You asked for it. Landing systems are taking control of your vehicle.
That sucked. Maybe dust off your A game for next time, huh?
an adventure that should have ended in wreckage opened into something else entirely, something Kael Rimor didn't expect. Because in all the chaos, in all the noise, he found something rare out there between the stars. He found a friend, and that single discovery changed the course of everything that followed. Stardate December 1st, 2955. He stared at the salvage rights contract glowing on the mobiglass, his last few AUEC spent on coordinates that might have been worthless, or might have been everything. Claim 12573. A downed MISC starfarer. Mining accident. UL4 shallow fields. Big ships meant big salvage. Big salvage meant real money. Real money meant help, equipment, crew. Members who believed in what he was building, in Sidus Rimor's future. Kael had known for a while now that surviving the verse alone wasn't sustainable. Purpose required people. People required payment. And payment required money, the one thing he was almost entirely out of. So he did what desperate men with a plan always do. He took a risk. Seraphim Station floated in the morning haze above Crusader, all gold-washed light and cold industrial quiet. And walking through its corridors, Kael felt every credit he didn't have weighing on him heavier than the kit strapped to his back. The elevator doors slid open with a metallic sigh, spilling him into the long spinal corridor of the station. Fluorescent panels hummed overhead. Electronic billboards threw shifting color across the floor, reds, blues, golds, pulsing like arterial lines. Kael walked the entire stretch alone. No music, no chatter, just the muted thump of his boots on reinforced plating. This was the walk he always remembered later, the kind that makes you look like you're heading toward destiny, even when you're just heading toward a ship you can barely afford to fuel. The red and black suit he wore caught the station lights in clean lines, the armor molding to him like a second skin. He looked like a man built for survival, even though survival was something he'd grown up privileged enough never to worry about. But privilege didn't build Sidus Rimor, and privilege wasn't going to save him now. He passed the viewport windows, Crusader's cloud bands sweeping past below in soft pastel strokes. And for a moment he wondered if anyone else walking this station felt the same strange hunger he did. To build something that would outlive him. That was the thing about Kael. He didn't just want to survive the verse. He wanted to know it. The landing services representative chimed rudely.
You asked for it. Landing systems are taking control of your vehicle.
Landing services began its usual condescending sermon. Kael exhaled sharply. He hadn't requested anything, except to be left alone long enough to reach his own ship. He sprinted the last few meters to the cockpit, boots hitting metal as the reclaimer sat there like a sleeping beast. A monster of a ship he had no business flying solo, let alone salvaging with. But it was all he had left. His last investment. His last gamble. His last way out. He slid into the captain's chair with seconds to spare. A small victory, But today, small victories mattered.
Systems green.
The reclaimer shifted with a deep metallic groan, like the ship itself was remembering the weight of its own purpose.
Landing complete. Have a pleasant stay.
Early sunlight washed over the hull, casting long shadows through the cockpit windows that stretched across Kael's face like golden scars. He always loved this moment. Crusader's upper atmosphere glowing soft pink beneath him. Seraphim Station drifting like a cathedral ringed in steel. Light splitting across the reclaimer's reinforced shell. For a man who came from money, from reputation, from a family of accomplishment, Kael still felt most honest in moments like this. Alone, flying toward the unknown, carrying nothing but ambition and whatever gear he could afford after weeks of scraping. His family had earned everything they had the hard way. Kael had inherited their grit more than their credits. And now that grit was all he had left. Kael eased the reclaimer into quantum calibration. He felt it in his chest, that mix of fear and purpose only certain kinds of men ever feel. He wasn't doing this because it was smart. He wasn't doing this because it was safe. He was doing it because he couldn't afford not to. The stars sharpened into thin white lines. The reclaimer spooled, light bent, and Kael whispered to himself, not a prayer, but a promise. Let this work, he thought, because if it didn't, there wouldn't be a Sidus Rimor. Not yet. Not without him. The stars stretched into pale ribbons as the reclaimer dove toward the claim site, engines howling against the emptiness. Kael sat alone in the command chair, and despite the vastness of the cockpit, he felt small. He'd bought this ship, this monster of steel and greed, and the joke was, he barely knew how to operate half of it. His father's voice hung in the back of his head, that same half-laughing, half-disbelieving tone. Boy, you don't even know how to run a prospector. What are you going to do with a reclaimer? Maybe he was foolish. Maybe this was too much ship, too soon. But Kael knew one thing with absolute clarity. If he could survive running a reclaimer alone, he could survive anything. 1,000,000 credits felt impossible. Good, that made it worth chasing. He adjusted the throttle. The ship groaned like an old beast waking after a long sleep. A Starfarer wreck. Silent, picked over, waiting. Perfect. Kael eased the reclaimer thrusters and let the heavy ship settle into position. The cockpit lights dimmed into salvage mode, the whole vessel reconfiguring itself like a predator lowering its stance. Let's see what you can do, he said to himself. He climbed out of the pilot's seat, pipes humming, bulkheads vibrating, lights flickering like the ship was thinking. The salvaging bridge waited. The scraper control chair, what old-school reclaimers called the throne. Then the beams ignited. The lasers carved through the Starfarer's hull, molten metal glowing gold against the void. Beautiful, hypnotic, therapeutic in a way he hadn't expected. Each sweep dissolved armor plates into a shimmering particulate stream that spiraled into the intake manifolds. The reclaimer purred content, hungry. Kael found himself smiling. But the job was tedious. The reclaimer could strip a ship bare, but only if the pilot could position a 600,000 kilogram vessel with millimeter precision. Which meant pilot seat, salvage chair, pilot seat, salvage chair. Again and again and again. Hands on metal, boots clanging steel steps. A loop, a ritual, a test of patience and stubbornness. This is what running an org feels like, he thought. Doing the impossible by hand until you can afford to let someone else do it. Hours passed that way. By the time he hit 30% stripped, his throat felt like sandpaper. His breath came harsh and hot. The irony wasn't lost on him. UEE vendors brag about these high-end suits. 2 times the wearer's weight, pressure balanced, temp regulated, shock absorbing, stealth coated. And somehow they drain the life out of you, like you're a plant sitting under 3 suns. They keep the body cool, but dry you out like a jerky strip. He checked his vitals. 26%. Kael blinked hard. Of course he had 0 AUEC. Of course he couldn't buy a single water bottle. So he made the only choice he could. He had to park somewhere and use a medical bed before he blacked out in his own ship. The reclaimer's elevator clanged open with that claustrophobic grind it was infamous for. Kael stepped inside, then kicked off into the void. A lone figure drifting under a wounded giant. Thrusters hissed. Debris glinted. The reclaimer loomed above him like a floating cathedral made of rusted teeth. He reached the station's nearest pad and touched down, boots magnetizing to the deck. He exhaled shaky. He'd made it. Inside the station, cold white lights burned overhead. Kael requested a recovery room from the kiosk.
Medical concerns got you worried?
I'm going to let my
Forget
manager
that stress.
deal with you.
Just relax.
Wait over there.
Everyone here at Kelto RX is
I've had
having a
enough
great
of
year.
it.
He made his way to his medical room.
Be sure to stop by our pharmacy to get the quality medicine. Friendly reminder,
2 nurses stood inside.
just by being
The hologram glitched and split, like a corrupted loop trying to mimic humanity and failing spectacularly. For all the taxes they siphon out of us, he muttered. The UEE could at least buy a functioning holostaff. He slipped past the double-faced attendant and climbed onto the medbed. A brief hum. Vitals replenished. Hydration restored. The cheap fix for an expensive problem. Minutes later, Kael stepped back into the void, pushing off the station platform with a burst of his thrusters. The reclaimer floated ahead, massive, still humming, framed by the pale white of a distant star. The reclaimer drifted away from Car UL4 like a wounded animal peeling off from a safe harbor. Kael sat alone in the cockpit, hands steady on the controls, but everything inside him felt tight, coiled, dry, exhausted. He spooled the drive, engaged. For 39 seconds, the cockpit was quiet, almost peaceful. He drifted in that silence, just long enough to believe maybe the universe was finally giving him a break. Then Hurston rose into view, a massive ochre world, swirling dust storms on the horizon, its atmosphere peeling back to reveal the impossible sprawl of Lorville blinking beneath the smog. Kael leaned forward. Even from orbital altitude, Lorville looked alive, electric veins of gold threading through a continent of factories and furnaces. Beautiful, dangerous, hypnotic. He couldn't help staring. And that was the mistake. The reclaimer punched into Hurston's night hemisphere, and the cockpit windows instantly drowned in rain. Lorville at night is already hostile. Lorville in a storm is a maze. The city glowed beneath him in molten gold. The rain refracted the lights into streaks, bending the skyline into a living oil painting. For a moment he just stared, chest tight with that strange mix of awe and dread that only Hurston can evoke. Then the warning hit. Exit the restricted area. Impounding vehicle in 10 seconds. On a reclaimer. In a storm. At night. Kael cursed, yanking the controls. He couldn't do it. No one could. The countdown hit 0. Then the world blinked. He started running. His boots slammed against the transit platform. He shoved past commuters. He ignored the chatter, the neon, the smell of metal and life. All he could think was, please let it be cheap. Please don't make me pawn my guns. Arriving at the kiosk, breath catching in his throat. The screen loaded, and his stomach dropped. Your balance, 555 credits. No infraction. No explanation. No reason. No ship. Kael stared at the blank screen like it had insulted him personally. His gloved fingers hovered over the console, unsure whether to punch it or laugh.